Good morning, everybody. It's great once again to be here at the Western Conservative Summit. It's great to see all of you who are here. This summit celebrates the conservative values that made the West prosperous and successful. And I applaud the Centennial Institute for once again hosting this great summit. It is my privilege to represent Colorado's 5th Congressional District. I work daily to advance the defense of our country and to preserve our personal liberties. As chairman of the House Armed Services Strategic Forces Subcommittee, my role is to ensure that our nation is prepared to deter, defend against, and respond to any attack. My subcommittee is charged with managing the nuclear, missile defense, hypersonics, and military space programs. These all underpin the ability of the United States to lead in world events and to defend from global threats. Today, the most significant challenge to the United States and our most serious threat is the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese are relentlessly seeking to undermine and supplant the United States, and they are actively planning aggressive action against Taiwan. I am particularly concerned about their unprecedented nuclear breakout and buildup. China now has more intercontinental ballistic missile launchers than the U.S. At its current rate of production, it will have well over 1,000 nuclear warheads in the near future. The Chinese struggle against us and the Western world includes collaboration with Russia to accelerate their warhead production. Russia's unprovoked and illegal invasion of Ukraine last year, the first ground war in Europe since World War II, shifted public opinion about the world we live in. The threats many of us have been discussing hypothetically for years have become a reality. What has changed to make our adversaries more aggressive? I believe it's the occupant in the White House. During President Trump's administration, the U.S. applied serious and deliberate focus to America's role in the world and to deterring our adversaries. President Trump held China accountable for its malign activities, kept Vladimir Putin at bay, eliminated the Iranian terrorist Soleimani, and withdrew from the Iranian nuclear deal. At the end of his administration, America was stronger and taken more seriously throughout the world. The beginning of the Biden administration marked a rapid reversal of this strong America First position. There is a pattern to the Biden administration's national security choices to date, a pattern of failure and weakness. For the first time, the U.S. faces two near-peer competitors, and there are signs that they are collaborating. As China is engaged in a nuclear breakout, the likes of which we have not seen since the beginning of the Cold War, Joe Biden is attempting to reduce America's nuclear weapons programs, such as the nuclear sea-launched cruise missile and the B-83 gravity bomb. These capabilities supplement our nuclear triad by deterring non-strategic nuclear threats and holding at risk various unique and difficult targets. And Joe Biden has similarly decided to ignore Russia's suspension of the New START treaty, and he's continued to provide information on America's nuclear arsenal as if Russia will reciprocate. When Russia prepared to invade Ukraine, Biden failed to deter Vladimir Putin. In the initial stages of the invasion, Biden was perilously slow in providing Ukraine with the capabilities necessary to repel Russian forces. Moscow and Beijing are developing and fielding hypersonic systems and testing anti-satellite weapons. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is years behind China in hypersonic testing and fielding. Rather than ensure that we have the missile defense capabilities to defend our citizens, homeland, and forces abroad, the Biden administration, in the face of this novel two-nation near-peer nuclear threat, continues to insist that we cut our nuclear arsenal and use old capabilities against new threats. This is not just incompetent, it is dangerous. Furthermore, his administration naively attempts to revive the Iran nuclear deal, while Iran continues to enrich uranium. According to reports, they have reached 84% enrichment. This puts them close to achieving a nuclear weapon. Biden's administration is currently seeking to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran in which sanctions will be lifted, but it ignores the serious concerns posed by Iran's record number of executions of its own citizens, continued evasion of sanctions, ongoing funding of terrorist proxy groups, and its continued work to build ballistic missiles that are nuclear capable. By not taking these threats seriously, Joe Biden is endangering the world. A notable cornerstone of his climate agenda has included begging Venezuela for oil, all while failing to address the crisis at the border, which is overrun and ruled by Mexican cartels. And we cannot forget the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan directed by Joe Biden that resulted, and it was against the advice of all of his military advisors, and it resulted in the death of servicemen from the U.S. and the abandonment of thousands of Afghani interpreters and their families who are now subject to oppressive Taliban rule. As he has cowered before our adversaries, Joe Biden has simultaneously undermined our relations with America's closest allies. When he first came into office, he swore to downgrade America's relationship with Saudi Arabia. This resulted in higher oil prices that drove gasoline prices to unprecedented highs. In addition, an increasing number of U.S. partner nations are choosing to cut diplomatic ties with Taiwan to favor China. These diplomatic missteps have been most apparent in the U.S. relationship with Israel, one of our closest allies, who the Biden administration seems to view as non-essential. I believe that the special relationship between the U.S. and Israel has only grown deeper and more significant over the years. I anticipate it will continue to flourish long into the future, no matter the antagonism displayed by this administration. I've been privileged to visit Israel 8 times, and I look forward to doing so once again in just a few weeks. We'll be there on a defense mission. The holy sites in Israel are cherished by people of many faiths across the world, and that's one of the reasons why we support this country. In stark contrast, Vice President Kamala Harris just this week expressed her belief that the U.S. should encroach upon Israel's sovereignty and tell them how to run their business. Apparently, the Biden administration believes it has a right to interfere in the internal politics of one of our closest allies. In addition, President Biden has still not met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, a deliberate snub. I believe we should support our allies instead of undermining them. I have a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, that if successful will invest $50 million per year in cutting-edge joint defense technology programs for the U.S. and Israel, like cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and directed energy. Providing for our common defense is the constitutional and first duty of the U.S. Congress. Despite the neglect of the Biden administration, we are taking a serious look at the programs and policies that our military must have. This year in the NDAA, my subcommittee will accelerate the development of hypersonics, keep nuclear modernization on track, streamline space acquisition and address overclassification, and create a more comprehensive missile defense strategy. America needs to aim for qualitative parity with China and Russia and establish the strength of Western civilization in hypersonics, nuclear modernization, and missile defense. Now is not the time for the Biden administration to talk about cutting our deterrence capabilities. Congress will robustly invest in the acquisition of these platforms as well as their associated warheads. We must project strength where and when needed. In addition to the damage Joe Biden and his administration have caused with our adversaries and allies, his social policies are wreaking havoc on society in America. The Biden administration has proudly declared its plans to spend $1.5 billion to develop an abortion hotline to facilitate abortions. This is a complete misuse of taxpayer dollars. The administration plans to turn the Department of Health and Human Services into the Department of Health and Abortion Services. This week, I introduced the Recognizing Life resolution, It acknowledges that unborn children are entitled to the protection of life and liberty as established by the 14th Amendment. By recognizing, thank you. By recognizing this fundamental right, we in Congress can help change abortion laws around the country and help end this cruel and unjust procedure. Soon I will introduce the Protecting Kids from Fentanyl Act. This bill will educate children and provide training and Narcan to teachers and school employees to hopefully save lives. Fentanyl killed more than 70,000 people last year, and we must combat this crisis in our communities. Also, earlier this year, we passed the Protecting Women and Girls Act, which makes sure girls are not forced to compete against biological males in sports funding through Title IX. We are now seeing that those claiming to advocate for women's equality are actively tilting the playing field against young women and girls in school sports. Because of the left, legislation like these bills I've just mentioned have become a necessary weapon in our defense of our personal freedoms and religious liberties. Whether it is for national security or traditional values, I will continue to fight for Coloradans and citizens of the American West, like all of you who are gathered here today, who seek to preserve our right to life and liberty. Thank you.